Okay, I've been dying to talk to you about Inside Out 2. This movie, along with Inside Out 1, is to me the most perfect, delightful, visceral, illustrative exploration of our emotional world and our identities and our beliefs and how those interact with the other people in our lives and the different versions of ourselves through life. My favorite thing that I think it captures really simply, but also in a very deep way, is the idea of as you grow up or as you grow into any phase of life. Of course, the movie covers the girl growing up into her teenage years. But I think this is just as visceral for the different phases we go through in midlife and God knows probably later. But the exploration of this battle between surviving and thriving and what each of those means. Somebody wrote in a review, they asked this question: why were there no positive emotions introduced in Inside Out 2? And I loved that question because the words positive and negative all by themselves are two separate. And I think the thing that the movie nails the most is the fact that the blending and the negotiation and the workings between and the tensions and the inner workings of all of these emotions is what gives the release into what we would call positivity. And it's a mix, and that begins in the first movie. They start to mix. All the emotions are very separate and clean, and everybody loves their roles, and it's very clean cut. It's like joy, fear, anger, sadness, and disgust. Towards the end of the first movie, sadness and joy in particular, proposed opposites, begin to realize they accidentally blend and they're horrified, but then they see the result in the young girl. And they see how it's rich and it's more complex and it's actually a more rewarding life experience, and they begin to work together. But if you really look at it, joy is the only positive emotion in the first one. So then in the second one, as she goes into teenage years, and it's just brilliant and funny and delightful and so profound, but you introduce anxiety, ennui, embarrassment, and envy into the teenage years. And this question, were none of them positive, I thought was just so profound. Because what the movie proves most of all, or explores in this way that you just feel to your core is true, that these emotions working together and ultimately, like, they fight for control. They fight to be the one in charge and have the strongest voice and the strongest influence over her feelings and her decisions and her beliefs. That creates the positive release and the positive effect. And just makes the entire point that positivity, just like the word happiness, in its real form is really integrated. And the idea of letting the emotions flow, and sometimes they get carried away. Anxiety completely takes over and hijacks everything, and it seems like a disaster. But that journey takes her to this place where she has to release. She has to release into sadness and disappointment and all of these things that ultimately is the place from which she can call joy back in. She calls joy back in. And my favorite statement that one of the emotions makes towards the end is, we don't get to decide who she is. And the emotions are learning with her, which I think is so true. They're learning and growing and evolving with this young lady to learn their powers and their collaboration points, and everybody's learning for the first time the result of what happens when you're working together, when you step back and let the other one take charge, when you're willing to have surrender to an emotion that you don't want to be in charge. The other emotions, when anxiety takes control, they do not want anxiety to take control. But ultimately, I love the living journey that the movie invites us all on, of there being no bad emotions ultimately at the end of the day. Because where all of them inside her get to, and where she gets to from riding the rough ride of when anxiety takes over and all these things are new, and they're all in negotiation of like how to live and how to be, and mostly how to determine who she is and what she's thinking or doing. None of it could happen without any of the others. And none of it could happen if sometimes each one isn't let through individually to be experienced. There are no bad emotions. Each of them is working genuinely in our favor to protect, and they will change and move. And you can have a different shift into a different experience. And it's this beautiful dance where you can call one of them forth as well. And most of all, the richest moments of arrival come in the surrender to what is, to what has flowed. And in that release, the joy gets called forth. And in the movie, it happens in this brilliant, soft little way. The rest of the movie, the emotions are like, they're all running to the console to be in charge. And when everything hits the fan and everything has just gone so far, every single entity just has to surrender. That's when the drop down happens. And these little sparkles come on the screen and surround the character of Joy. And these sparkles, it's never happened before, start pulling Joy towards the console. And it's the first time that the character seems to consciously be calling in a single emotion. And she's able to do that because all of the others got to live fully. So this movie is something else.